What's going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the All Sports All Plays Network. I'm here today with Greg Hot Seat Galno, and this is the Thursday Bull Count. Greg, what's going on? How was today?
Oh man, today was really good. I went for about a 3 or 4 mile hike. Got out and saw some great nature and everything, and it was a beautiful day out. And, yeah, I think things are going good. Nate, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing really really well. Uh, yesterday was a great day. Today's another exciting day. Starting off first week of work, and it's been really really exciting. So let's get right in. Let's get right into the topics, and I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Baseball Jeopardy. I'm actually going to put the share screen up and share what the questions look like. So to start things off, let's batter up. Remember the rules that if this question is wrong, if we get this question is wrong, that is one out. But if we get up to 10 questions right, if we finish 10 questions, I should say, we're going to end that segment as well. To start things off, question number 1. Who is the Pirates' all-time leader in saves? Yoel Hanra, Hanrahan, Kent Tekuve, or Mark Malinkin?
I'm gonna go with Kent Tekuve.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that, as I just clicked the answer, and that is one home run. So we're that is one question. That's question 1. Question 1 is done. Now, question 2 is which pitcher started Game 5 of the 1980 NLCS at Houston? Marty Baystorm, Larry Christensen, or Bob Walk?
1980. Okay. Was that the Pirates versus the Astros in 1980?
Oh gosh. I wanna since it's not that question, I'll look that up, but I wanna say yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Bob Walk.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that as well. And that is incorrect. As the next, the correct answer is actually Marty Lystrom. So that is an out. That is one out. Question 3. In 1954, the Yankees and the Orioles pulled off the largest trade in MLB history. How many players did that involve? 9, 14, or 17?
Let's see. I'm going to say 14 people.
Yeah, I'm going right in the middle, and that's where I'm leaning as well. Ooh.
Oh, boy.
That is straight. That is out number 2. So among the 17 players, the O's acquired Gus Tranos and Gene Woodling, and the trade commenced on November 18th and was completed on December 3rd. Wow, I did not know that. There were 17 players being involved. Now, in the Metrodome, Who is the all-time home run leader? Kent Herbeck, Kirby Puckett, or Gary Gaetti? I have an answer for this. Well, I think I have my own answer for this, but I want to say it's Kirby Puckett. Do you agree with that, or?
I'm going to say it's old Kent Herbeck for the Metrodome.
All right. Here, piece of paper. I have writing on it. The piece of paper is heads, and the writing on the piece of paper is heads, and the blank side is tails. I'm going to flip it like I flip a coin. Whichever it lands will be the answer chosen. So it's either Kirby Puckett, and you said Gary Gaetti?
No, I said Kent Herbeck.
Kent Herbeck, okay. So you choose heads or tails?
I'll go tails.
And it is tails. Correct, he scored again. Which interleague play was introduced in 1997, and who was the first Twins opponent? The Houston Astros, the Chicago Cubs, or the St. Louis Cardinals?
I'm going to go with the Astros on that one.
So before I click to make sure, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're actually at question 5, and I'm going to go Houston Astros. And that is correct. So this is a Rangers question. Who holds the club record for the most strikeouts as a Rangers pitcher? I think it's Nolan Ryan.
That's a tough one because I can't remember exactly how many years he pitched for the Rangers, but I know he did dial up quite a few strikeouts.
He played like multiple stints for the Rangers. I think he played like 3 different stints.
Okay.
I don't remember how many years. I agree.
I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with old Charlie Huff.
Okay, I'll do the same thing. Well, not the same thing, but like do the flip thing again.
Yeah.
Heads or tails?
Charlie Huff and his knuckleball. I'll go with heads this time.
And it is tails again. So Nolan Ryan. Oh, it was Charlie Haw. You're right.
I was gonna say because I think that old Charlie Huff played like about 12 seasons or so over there, and he had a devastating knuckleball.
Yeah, I had a couple of baseball cards of Nolan Ryan, and I learned some interesting things. Like to help improve his accuracy, what he used to do is Nolan Ryan used to actually toss the football around to help prove his accuracy.
Oh wow!
So I learned a lot about the Nolan Ryan from the baseball cards that my dad used to collect. Well, anyway, let's go into the next topic, and that's do the top 5 pitchers. Now, who are your top 5 San Diego Padres pitchers of all time?
Well, as we've seen, currently San Diego's got a pretty awesome starting rotation when healthy. You know, they've got Blake Snell, Yu Darvish. They've got Mackenzie Gore.
So is your number 1 Joe Musgrove because he's the only one to throw a no-hitter?
I didn't have him in this list.
Yeah, I
A
was
few of
kidding. I
these
was
are a little
kidding.
bit older. We're not going way back because San Diego's not a highly old franchise, so we're not going extremely way back for these answers. But I've got the old man Gaylord Perry um, when he played in the late 70s. He went 21-6 with a 2.73 ERA, and he won the Cy Young at the age of 40. And he became the first pitcher at the time to win a Cy Young in both leagues. So I have him in there in the 5 spot. Then I got a pretty consistent presence in the 4 hole with Ed Whitson. Not an outstanding pitcher by any means, but he played in the 83-84 seasons, and then he had a second stint in 1986 to 91. And so, he was pretty consistent, picked up a pretty decent amount of wins during that time. Wasn't really an outstanding pitcher, but he was a great guy to have in the clubhouse and everything. So I have him in my 4 spot. In the 3rd hole, I've got Trevor Hoffman. Trevor Hoffman, as we know, could light it up, from a save standpoint. He had a league leading 53 saves in 1998. He played from 93 to 2008, and then he was released by the Padres and was later picked up by the Brewers, I believe. And he had a little bit of success in 2009 with, I think he got about 37 saves or so, and then he started going downhill shortly after that. But a tremendous closer, had some great. He came in and was lights out most of the time that he came in late in the game. So I have him in there in the 3rd hole. And then, of course, I got good old Jake Peavy in the number 2. He collected 92 wins for the Padres. He played about 7 or 8 seasons from 02 to 09. And, he had a really good arm, but he was also plagued sometimes with some injury issues. But, he was a well-liked player in San Diego. I think the fans loved him. He gave it his all, and they hated to see him go. And then I've got a guy in the number 1 by the name of Randy Jones.
Dang it! You have my entire list on your list.
From 73 to 80. And, Randy Jones, honestly, I don't know how he worked his way all the way up to the number 1 spot, because when he first started out, he was a pretty dismal pitcher. In fact, when the Padres were first starting out in the early 70s, he had like an over 7 ERA. He was like the 3rd pitcher for the Padres to have 20 losses, and it just didn't look good for him. And then he just kind of turned it around a few seasons later and got their first 20-win season as a pitcher for the franchise. And in 1976, he went 22-14 with a 2.74 ERA and 25 complete games. So he was definitely a front runner for the Cy Young Award. So Randy Jones, he worked his way all the way up to number 1. And an interesting thing about Randy Jones is he didn't really have great stuff, but he had, he threw a lot of junk that enticed a lot of people. He threw a lot of balls in the dirt. He kind of had some interesting pitches that he threw out there, and he would get a lot of hitters to bite on it. So he didn't have, an incredible fastball. He didn't have an all-world curveball, but he was able to just throw stuff out there good enough to kind of get people to kind of bite on it. So
and his saves were
I got
like
Randy
amazing.
Jones in my number 1.
And his saves were like amazing. I think Randy Jones has isn't he second in the most number of saves played in a MLB by a pitcher?
Randy Jones?
Yeah, was he second on
I
that?
I don't think so.
I know one Padres pitcher was second on. Oh, anyway,
I think that's Trevor Hoffman. That's the
yeah,
second
that's true.
all-time
It was
save
Trevor
leader.
Hoffman. You're right.
Yeah, because I think Mariano Rivera passed him at some point.
Yeah,
not too long
he
ago.
passed him by one save. It was 601 to 600. So since you have my list on your as your list, like 1 through 5 is the exact same. I'm going to share a couple of stories that I found by some of these pitchers that I thought were pretty interesting. To start off, to start things off, we'll go talk a little bit about Perry. So he started off. Well, he started off as he was playing for the Rangers, Texas Rangers, for a little bit. But by trade, because of his age, by trade, Texas Rangers traded him for an unnamed, no-name player and $125,000. He did his thing, did really, really well, but in 1978, he did really, really well. He had a great win-loss record. And in 1979, his ERA did go up. It was okay, but it was worse than it was in 78. And his record was not great. He won 12 out of 23 games played on that team. So what Perry decided to do is he took his anger out publicly on the Padres manager Roger Gregg. So he quit the team because he's not liking the situation going on with the Padres, and by request he went back to the best team in all baseball, the Texas Rangers. Well, not right now, but anyway. So that was one story that I found, did some research on. The other one actually went towards it was actually about Hoffman. So, Padres fans were upset, and because there were a lot of blatant fire sales in 1993 after Gary Sheffield was traded from the Padres to the Marlins. It was bad enough that Padres fans wanted to sue the team. Until people realized what they got out of that trade, which was Hoffman. During Hoffman's ninth innings, that he would usually come out and do those saves, people would often blast out a song called Blast Out Hell Bells from the AC/DC band, and which would often confuse pitchers. I mean, not pitchers, batters, because people were playing that song so loud. That song was being played so loud by multiple fans.
You don't know me.
Nate, you're not coming in very good for me, bud.
Okay. Well, let's see if this can hear me. Test. All right. I guess I'll go solo for a little bit. For those that missed it, the first story was talking about Perry, what was going on with him, the Padres, and the Rangers. Talking a little bit about the second case. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, I guess not. So can you hear me?
Nate, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You got to bring me onto the stage there, bud.
You're on stage. Oh, whoops. Okay. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So let's get on to the next topic. Talk a little bit about this week in what we saw. What we saw, like top 5 teams of this week during baseball. Now that's not heading up to this week, not the whole season. It's just this week from last show to this show. Top 5 teams that played within that week. Since I'm the only one on, I'll go first. Is that better? Is that better? Can you hear me now?
All right. Can you see me, Nate?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I can't see you yet.
Okay. So moving on to the next topic, top 5 teams of this week. So what is on your top 5?
Nate, I can't see you at all, bud.
Okay. Is that better?
No, I can't see you.
Or I'm sorry, Paul, bear with us for a little bit. We're experiencing some technical difficulties.
Okay, there you are.
Okay,
There you
now we're good. So what are your top 5 teams of this week in baseball?
Well, we just talked about one going through all the pictures that they've had in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I got to go first and foremost with the San Diego Padres. They're tearing it up right now. They've won 9 of their last 10. And then, sad to say, but all you Dodgers fans are probably grinning with glee right now because your Dodgers are on an 8-2 run. And Albert Pujols just hit a 2-run bomb today. So that's a great sight to see. Him and Dodger Blue, if you're a Dodger fan, and he already came out and hit a 2-run bomb. So I got the Dodgers in the mix.
So sorry to interrupt.
I'm going to finish it off with the Astros and the Giants and the Rays, I think, are what I have for the top 5. I wanted to put the Yankees in there, not because I'm a Yankees fan, because I'm not, but because they're kind of riding high. They're getting excellent defensive play now from Higashi behind the plate, and they're starting to figure it out a little bit. They were able to get some of their big.
Okay, again, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. I'll go with my list. Like what Greg said, you've got to put the Padres in there at number 1. 9-1 their last 10 games. All right. So my number 2, got to go with the Astros. 8-2 in their last 10 games. They swept the Rangers, and they took 2 games out of 2 games out of 3. Now, when doing this math and stuff, I wrote the list down before today's slate of games, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But they took 2 out of their the 3 games against the Athletics. My number 3 might come to a shock to some people. I'm putting the Detroit Tigers in my number 3 spot. They swept the Seattle Mariners. Now I get it that they against the Cubs that they only won 1 game in that series, but they still are 8-2 in their last 10. My number 4, I got to go with the Rays. They swept the New York Mets. They took one of their against the Yankees. They had one win in that series, and they took 2 games against the Orioles. My number 5, I got to go Dodgers. They're another team that swept the Mariners. They took 2 games out of 3 against the Marlins, and they took 2 games. Well, maybe depending on today's slate, maybe 3. Oh, against the Diamondbacks. Well, actually, that game's not over yet, so they've only taken 2. Now you cut off. What was the thing that you had to say before you cut off?
I was going to say that I wanted to put the Yankees in there because they're getting some excellent defensive help right now. They were able to put a few big bats in their lineup and get those hitters some rest. They're 7-3, and they're starting to make a move right now in the American League East. I'm not a Yankees fan, but yeah, they seem to be finding their way, and I just think they're kind of riding high right now because Corey Kluber got them their first no-hitter in I don't know how many years, but it's been quite some time since the Yankee starting pitcher has thrown a no-hitter. So
since the 90s, I think. Well, actually, they said that the stats said the Yankees have not thrown a no-hitter until Corey Kluber in the past decade.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time. So that was pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've been talking about Corey Kluber for weeks now. When's he going to get it together? Was he a good pickup? Did the Yankees gamble? So it's a good sign to see him pitch well and get a no-hitter because I know that he's had a lot of pressure over the since the season started, whether it was a good pickup for the Yankees or not.
You know what? Let's go into the final topic, and that's actually talking about today's games. Let me start off and just talk about the San Francisco Giants scoring not 1, not 2, but 19 runs. 19 runs against the Cincinnati Reds. They ended up pulling the win 19-4. They scored the same amount of runs as the age that I am. So 19-4. I'm just gonna say 9 of those runs in that inning came in the second inning. Every pitcher that the Reds started every pitcher that the Reds started in that game threw a pitch that ended up being a run. Well, actually, until Alex Blando started, which Alex Blando did not. He got a run in that one, but really, no. Actually, I take that back. It's just Max Schrock to close out the game. He didn't get a run in that one. So I think really the Reds started so many pitchers, but I don't think they had a choice not to off of the number of runs that the Giants were scoring.
Yeah, I was looking at the stat line. I had no idea that the Reds went through this many pitchers. And I saw, it was this terrible stat lines. Out of all the pitchers, no pitcher that the Cincinnati Reds put out there today to get through this game put in any more than 2 innings of work. That really says a lot. San Francisco was just putting the ball in play left and right. 16 hits, 19 runs, gave up 4. Cueto pitched pretty decently through 5. I think he gave up a run or so, gave up 5 hits, but he played pretty decently. They obviously didn't have to run through as many pitchers as the Reds just to get through this thing. But yeah, it was a horrendous outing today for the Reds. Usually we've seen the Reds kind of on the other end of these things. When they're hot with their sticks, they can put up 12 to 14 runs in a game. But yeah, today they just got shell shocked, and it was not a good outing at all for their pitching staff. I mean, giving up 4 or 5 home runs, 16 hits is just absolutely ridiculous.
So I actually saw the last part of this game where it was 18-4 is when I turned when I saw this channel. It wasn't a live reaction, but there was a comment section at the side, and you can post your comments and stuff like that. How I had to laugh. Because I hopped in at the 8th inning. When it was 18-4. I had to laugh because there were so many comments. And then the last comment that popped up, somebody said, "Oh wow, really? It's 3rd inning and it's 10-1. The score is 10-1." And then it was dead silent after that. No more comments after the 3rd inning because of how many runs how many runs the Giants were scoring. Now, it was also funny because I actually saw the Athletics game today against the Astros, and you had the same thing. There were so many comments. It was different comments, but it was until that last part where somebody said that the Giants were up 10-1 over the Reds in the 3rd inning, and it was dead silent after that. It was funny watching the dead silence. Looking at the dead silence after looking at both of those games. So I'm going to go and talk about the next one. Another blowout. Not as big as the 19-4, but it was another blowout. The Tampa Bay Rays beat the Baltimore Orioles 10-1. Now, looking at the stat line here, Rich Hill was the starting pitcher for the Rays. He gave up 1 earned run in the 4th, and he pitched for 6 innings. Trevor Richards came in, and then Lewis Head came in. Orioles pitched so many pitchers as well. Cesar Valdez is the only pitcher to not score a run in this game. There was just a lot of scoring in just both those games. The combined between the Giants and the Rays was 29 runs. Now, I addressed this earlier today. When I gave a live update on the Giants matchup. I addressed last year's Atlanta Braves matchup against Miami Marlins, where Atlanta won 29-9. Now, Craig, we're going from one high-scoring affair to another. It's not as big, but knowing that we have a lot of these no-hitters and knowing that we have a lot of these big blowouts, do you think that a team will eventually score more runs than the 29-9 matchup last year? Do you think any team this year will score more? Greg,
I don't think so. I
Oh.
think that with the COVID, the big hit from last year, and the hitters' approach this year, where they're taking an all or nothing approach, that gives a very big time advantage to the pitching staff right now. We've seen it time and time again this year. We're already at 6 no hitters. I think the record you said was about 8.
It was
the all-time
we're
record.
we're 7 actually.
No hitters in it. It was 7. So yeah, we're gonna probably well eclipse that, at some point this season. I mean, I think we're gonna have double digits. About 12 or 13 maybe no hitters when it's all said and done. And a lot of pitchers, they're not coming out without standing stuff, but a lot of hitters are coming up there. Maybe they're not quite prepared, for this particular type of pitcher approach. It seems like they're trying to dig in for the long ball or do something exceptional when they just need to try to get up there and make decent contact. And so I can see some more high-scoring games for sure, because we've seen it all season long, but we've also seen a lot of pitching gems too. But I don't think that we're going to see 29 runs this season. I just don't see it. I don't think that the level of hitting is catching up to the level of pitching this season.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. Let's move on and talk a little bit of the Rangers. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games. Giants swept them. Astros swept them. And the Yankees win the series 3-1. This was this game was 2 pitches shy. 2 pitches shy from a record being tied that's been set in 1884, the 8 no-hitters. And it was the same score as the Corey Kluber's no-hitter game yesterday, I think. This was just a bad game. It was a bad game. We're not doing great. Yes, we've been playing against tough teams, but we're still not doing great. And now, as Ray mentioned earlier on an earlier episode, we're setting up this loser mentality that is going to affect when we play easier opponents. May not be the easiest opponents later on, but when we face easier opponents, it's going to set up this loser mentality, and then these games that could be very competitive coming out of off this losing streak, they can end up being losses as well. Now, Greg, what are your thoughts? It's 1-9 in their last 10 games. What are your thoughts on this Rangers team? Do you see when we play against the easier schedule? What do you see happening?
Well, what I see happening is what I see happening with a lot of teams that are kind of depleted for talent. Teams that are in the bottom 5 or 10 in the league. You've got a couple very strong players. If you're lucky, usually maybe one strong player trying to hold up the team. Right now, that's Gallo over there for the Rangers. He's trying his best to keep everything together. He's their best marketable player. He's a player that a lot of teams would love to get their hands on if they could. I don't think he wants to leave the Rangers. He's still playing good, but he doesn't have much help. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about how well the Rangers were playing. They were putting together quite a few games. I think they went 7-3 or so at some point a few weeks ago. Over a
Yeah,
span
and
of
then we
2 weeks.
had the 6-game losing streak.
Yeah, so um, every now and then you might have a game where it comes down to a managerial decision that might cost you a game. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, it's usually the players on the field that affect the game. I don't think that the manager is in the best spot right now. He's not always making the best moves. But, like today, they got 6 hits but wasn't able to score anything. The Yankees just were able to get the outs when the Rangers had some momentum going. So, it wasn't a poorly hitting game, because they were able to get 6 hits through 9 innings. But yeah, they didn't get anything to show for it. And the Yankees, they put out about 4 pitchers. German played really well, pitched really well, got his 4th victory of the season. So it was just I wouldn't say an outstanding pitching effort on the Yankees. It's just that the Rangers, they're able to get a few singles here and there, but they're just not advancing the runners. They're not putting enough pressure on the defense really to capitalize. So they're just not getting the big RBIs, and they don't have a lot of depth in their lineup. Gallo's kind of in no man's land on that. So I don't want to see Gallo get walked all the time just because he's their main threat in the lineup. But sometimes that's what's going to happen in games is they're going to take the bat out of his hands because they think that he's the only one that's really truly capable of being consistent in the lineup. So I know that the Rangers are a young team. They didn't make very many smart moves this off season and everything, and they moved Andrus and everything, but they picked up Chris Davis, who's kind of an all or nothing free swinger, but I just think that the Rangers are destined to just kind of go on these runs from time to time where they're gonna. I'm not gonna say 1-9, but I can see them going 3-7, having some 3-7 10-game spans because they just don't have a lot of depth in their pitching staff. They're pretty young, and they just don't have a lot of big bats in the lineup to help protect Gallo in the 4-hole.
So, looking at the schedule coming up, we have a 3-game series against Houston. Houston at home. I see Houston taking it. Yes, I do see the Rangers maybe getting a win, but I see Houston taking it mostly. So then we go off play the Angels. I see a split. It's a 2-game series. I see a split. I think we're going to take the series against Seattle. I see us sweeping Colorado. Tampa Bay, I see us getting 1 win.
Yeah, what the Rangers really need is they just need to find themselves playing about 12 games in a row against the Rockies, the Pirates, the Tigers, and the Orioles, and I think that they could get back in the mix. If they could get those 4 teams kind of loaded up in a row to play, but yeah, it's tough. I think that division's kind of underperforming as a whole, anyways. I mean, 1 minute the A's are hot, 1 minute the Astros are hot. The Angels aren't really doing that much. They've had a lot of controversy going on with releasing Albert Pujols and everything. But I think that the Rangers, they like you said, they got a few games coming up, a few series coming up where they might be able to split or even take a series. So, I think that things will look better. But I think it's just going to be one of those years where they're going to be probably at the bottom for most of the season.
Unfortunately. Let's move on. let's move on from the Texas Rangers game. Well, actually, I have one more thing to say. I have one more thing to say about this. I'm going to go on a hot take and talk a little bit about no-hitters. It is now May 20th. I see by June 1st us getting maybe 1 or 2 no-hitters. And breaking the record set in 1884 of the most no-hitters in a single season. So that's a hot take. By June 1st, I see that happening. The next game, the Chicago Cubs, they beat the Nationals today, 5-2. So pitching, you have you have Joe Ross who hit a run. I mean, Joe Ross gave up 2 runs. Gave up 2 runs in the first inning, and he pitched for 3. He pitched for 3 innings. The first inning he gave up 2 runs, but he actually didn't give up runs after that. We just talked about the Nationals. I don't know what they were thinking on in terms of how they're starting their pitchers, because in the 3rd inning they gave up a guy that scored 2 runs just in the first. He didn't score any run. He didn't give up any runs after the first inning. It was just in the first. And the Nationals. So the Nationals didn't score any runs. I'm sorry. Yeah, Nationals didn't score any runs until just in the first. I'm talking about the Cubs, though. Joe Ross, there were 3 earned runs in this game. The Cubs were the ones who pitched. So, anyway, the Nationals pitching staff was confusing. What are your thoughts on, particularly towards this Washington Nationals Chicago Cubs matchup?
Well, I'm telling you, I feel really sorry for the Nationals, because on paper, when you look at them with Strasburg, Scherzer, Corbin, they got 3 top-of-the-line pitchers, or at least should be on paper. They're not getting much help from a defensive or an offensive standpoint. So their pitchers are going out there. They're not pitching as a whole, as well as they should be, or as well as they're predicted to be, but they're not getting much run support either, when they go out there. So for this matchup, these are 2 teams that aren't necessarily front runners for anything. You're talking about the Cubs, who's probably middle of the pack, maybe, at best in their division, and you're talking the Nationals, who's predicted probably to be last or second to last, in their division, even though that frustrating divisions to watch right now, because it's just no one's pulling away, no one's playing very consistent. There's a lot of injuries going on. Phillies are getting kind of restless, and Phillies fans are getting pretty restless with the way they're going out there every night. So it doesn't surprise me, a game like this, 5-2. But looking ahead, I could see Strasburg is locked in. Okay, but Scherzer, I think that he kind of his heart wants to be with the Nationals. I don't think he really wants to go anywhere. I think he has a no trade clause in right now. But I think that if a contender was to emerge and kind of ask about his services, I think that he may be open to leaving if that's what the Nationals want to do, if they want to try to free up the books a little bit. So I could see a top notch pitcher like Scherzer at some point around the trade deadline or maybe even a little bit before maybe saying, "Hey, I might want to go to a contender, or it might be best if I get off the books here." So I can see a big move coming down the road. I know that it's still early in the season, but the way that the Nationals are playing, and all the theatrics that are coming from their management, their manager, and everything. I could see them getting rid of a big name, especially when they're playing this poor baseball at this point in the season.
Yeah. So the next matchup is the Houston Astros versus the Oakland Athletics. Now, during this game, this was another game that I saw. I think the Astros really needed this one because after this win tonight, they are up first in the AL West for the first time since when they played the Detroit Tigers. The Athletics, the Astros took this series 3-1. So, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I hate to see it because I made a bold prediction before the season started that I thought that the Angels were going to be the emerging team in this division. I know that they still lack the pitching depth and everything, but with Shohei Ohtani tearing it up on the mound and playing in the field and also hitting some blasts, he's pretty much doing it all for him. But I think that in the back of my mind, I always thought that the Astros, even with losing Springer, were going to be right up there still in the division. I was hoping that wasn't the case. I was kind of hoping to see a changing of the guard with A's or the Angels kind of making strides to pass the Astros, But this game here, it doesn't surprise me. They're getting the Astros. They still, even without Springer, you still got Brantley, who's a very consistent hitter, about a 300 hitter. You still have Bregman, that's an outstanding defensive player and can smash the ball. You got Altuve. Correa is having a bounce back season. He's playing really well. So this game doesn't really surprise me at all because the Astros have went 8-2 over their last 10 games. But what's surprising to me is not too long ago, the Athletics put together like 13, 14 games in a row. They went on like a 13, 14 game winning streak, and then they overtook the West and was leading the West. And then they just kind of slid off, and their numbers haven't been really that great since they went on that massive winning streak. So, the A's, I think they started out like about 1-8, and then they won 14 games in a row, and then they just started playing 500 and sub 500 ball again. So it doesn't surprise me that the Astros came out and did what they did today. The Astros still had to go through about 6 pitchers, I believe, to get this win. But they just came out and played well. They got 14. And the A's didn't really have much of a chance today because the Astros were just sitting on everything that the Athletics were thrown to him at the plate. So, I'm not a huge Astros fan, but you got to give them their due. They're getting into a hot streak right now. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. They're one of the teams that I had in my top 5 for the week. So,
Yeah, Astros were my number 2. Now there were a couple things that I noticed about this game. One's actually towards the Athletics. The Athletics, when between them and their opponent, when it's a close game, 3 runs or less, between them and the opponent, Athletics are usually that team to pull off with the victory. They have a great record when it comes to that. But when it comes to games like today, where it was 4 runs or more separating the difference between both of these teams, they usually are the ones that come out with the loss. Now I get it; they have a winning record, so it's not that often. But that is really kind of interesting. Interesting that something I saw. And the other one, now I wanted to talk a little bit again towards the Athletics. Talk a little bit about the pitching in this game. Now, in the 8th inning, the Athletics started Ryan Stanek, and I understand why, even though he hasn't given up a run, I understand why the Athletics benched him. They benched him and put in Ryan Presley to come out in this game to finish off the inning, and he did. They benched Ryan Stanek because he got the bases to be loaded. Now, that was one more pitch that Ryan Stanek could have thrown, and it could have been a home run, and we could be talking a 8-game difference ball game than a 4-game difference ball game. So I understand the reason why they benched Ryan Stanek in the 8th inning. Yeah, Ryan Stanek, not Ryan. Let's go in. It's getting close to that time. Well, let's cover one more game. And that's actually the other game that finished off scoreless. It wasn't a no-hitter, but it was a game that finished off scoreless. The Miami Marlins, they won today 6-0 over against the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, it wasn't a no-hitter ball game. Sandy Alcantara was the guy who pitched this. He did give up 2 bats, but why in the world, if Phillies didn't even score, why was Sandy Alcantara benched?
That's a good question. I really have no idea why a pitcher that's pitching that great of a game would be benched. I don't know if they were keeping track of, keeping a count on how many pitches he was throwing. I don't know if, they only wanted him to throw 100 pitches. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they thought that since it wasn't a no-hitter or something, maybe they just utilize their bullpen to finish out the game and get him a little bit more rest. But yeah, it's pretty sad when the state of affairs in all of baseball, when you see teams like the Yankees, Marlins going into their bullpen and not just relying on their starters, to go out there. It seems like they're kind of, I don't know about babying the pitchers, but it seems like they're not expecting pitchers to really go out and get you a lot of innings anymore. Back in the day, um, that was one big thing that could get a pitcher a good contract, is a pitcher that could go out and eat up a lot of innings so that you wouldn't have to use your bullpen and everything. And now it seems like basically a lot of teams are kind of just hoping to get 5 decent innings out of their pitcher, and then they're just going to use 3 or 4 pitchers in their bullpen to try to get through the game.
It's
So
ridiculous.
it is, and they talk about wanting to speed up the game. They talk about wanting to do all this stuff, but it's really not going to speed up anything when you're having a pitching change in the 5th inning, 6th inning, 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning. So I have no idea why they took him out. I don't think he had a noted injury or anything like that. I don't think he had anything going on. It didn't say, anything about elbow tightness or anything like that. So, I think that while he was pitching such a great game, they should have kept him out there. And, usually a manager or a pitching coach will keep a player out there until they give up a home run or a big hit or something, and they look gassed.
Like what the Cubs did a few weeks back.
Yeah. So, I really don't know. I think that the Astros probably would have won the World Series. A couple seasons ago, had AJ Hinch not gone out there just because Zach Greinke gave up a home run. His arm was fresh, so what? He gave up a home run. He had only pitched like about 78 pitches.
So it's getting close to that time, like I said. Any final comments before we get this close?
I just want to give another shout out to Albert Pujols. He didn't have to move too far. He's pretty much staying in the same house. Only has to drive about a half an hour, 40 minutes.
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, so he didn't have to really do anything other than change jerseys. So he gets to stay where he is. He seems comfortable in Los Angeles. They seem to have a plan for him at some point. He might play a little bit of first base or just come off the bench and get some big hits. So he came out today, hit a big 2-run bomb. So, it looks like the Angels, it wasn't the best move in the first place to throw that kind of money at a guy that's already played 10 or 11 seasons. Because I don't think that Pujols lived up to his contracts, but
he was close. If Albert Pujols had not been cut this season, then he would have.
Yeah. So it's kind of a sad state of affairs. The reasoning for getting rid of him on the last year of his contract and everything, but it's good to see him. He's an outstanding person, an outstanding player, definite first ballot Hall of Famer, and it's just good to see him. Not necessarily in Dodger blue. I don't like seeing that, but that's okay. He came in and got a 2-run knock, and it looks like he's just kind of turned the page on whatever happened over there in Anaheim.
All right, so this has been Nate the Great and Greg Gallino signing out. See you guys on next week.